Victoria, your thoughts on this?
Well, I always like to remind people at a time such as this that both my parents grew up in the former Soviet Union, and they both decided to raise my sister and I here in the U.S. because they realized the benefits of capitalism and, the amount of freedom and choice that a capitalist system like what we have here in America brings to the table. Of course, it exists even in countries with higher government regulation like the UK. But look, Sainsbury's is only one retailer. You can go to Tesco's. You can go to M&S Food. You can spend as much as you want on your grocery bill. Of course, there's going to be a floor at some point. There's always going to be other options. We also have comparable choice here in the US, probably a wider variety, actually. If you want cheap fruit and veg, where you'll go is you'll probably go to the ethnic market. You have Hispanic and Asian markets where, you can get three things of green onions for $1 versus some places will charge you $1 a bunch. So this capitalist system provides so much freedom and choice that people have so many different options. And we've gotten Aldi and Lidl, great European inventions. We've gotten them here, at least in Northern Virginia. They're coming over. But we've also got things like Whole Foods, now owned by Amazon. They've actually lowered their prices a little bit since they've become owned by Amazon. And I have one of their credit cards that gives me 5% back and all kinds of deals. And even though some things are more expensive, if you shop the deals and you coupon, you can get some things at really great prices. Like, just as a fun aside, for example, I'm a really big fan of oysters, and I've discovered recently on Fridays they do dollar oysters, which is like really cheap compared to going to a restaurant, for example. You can do them for $4.50 a pop. And so, I think at a time such as this, and I'm speaking as somebody that's in my late 20s, my husband's in his early 30s. We're a 2-income household in a quite high cost of living area. But for example, we'll say maybe we'll go out less on restaurants, but we'll buy actually higher quality groceries so that our home cooking feels a little bit more like what we would get at a restaurant. And again, that's a choice that you have when you have a budget to work with. Again, I don't have kids, so I don't really relate on that part right now. But I'm sure I will in future. And that's just, I think, choices that every single family and household needs to make. And also. Of course, it sucks having to have multiple jobs. I've done it here in the U.S., in Northern Virginia, but that's also an option if you are struggling.